It has almost been a decade when all this happened, and it doesn't go a single day without me thinking about this. When the day when my close friend Ethan vanished during a camping trip along with me and some other friends we had with us. Ethan and I grew up in the same neighborhood. My parents and his parents were close friends. In fact, we went to the same middle school and high school together. But when it comes to college, well, I went to one and he went to a separate one. But we remained in contact on social media and even when we went back home for holiday breaks. But when the college was finally over, we moved back home. I just decided to live with my parents for only a short time until I find my own place. Anyways, my name is Connor, by the way. At the time, I was 24, like Ethan. And one evening during the summer of 2014, I had invited Ethan over for some beer and to watch some TV with me. Me and Ethan were talking about some of our old childhood memories, especially one thing that we always treasured: camping trips. But we hadn't even been on any camping trip since we were in high school. So Ethan suggested that we should do our own camping trip. And I was like, why not? It had been a while. So I suggested that we could maybe invite some more people, maybe do this as a couple trip. He actually thought that was not a bad idea. He suggested we invite Jason. Jason was another close friend of ours. And I suggest that he talked to his girlfriend and I talked to mine. And I contacted Jason and asked him about it. And he was actually on the idea. I contacted Sandra. She is my girlfriend. Around the same age, but now my wife. Even contacted Nicole, was with his girlfriend, and Jason contacted Amy, was his girlfriend. Even our girlfriends was actually okay with this idea. In fact, they loved the idea. So we decided to go on a one weekend trip. We decided to take my car and even Jason's car. It was big enough for both of us, all of us. So we decided we left on a Thursday. And I actually had chosen this remote forest that was only several hours, at least about 4 hours away from where we lived. And on the way, we were talking about what we were going to do and what we were hoping to find this place. And since this place was actually not a camping site, so we choose to find a good spot. After we came to the forest, we left the drive into this dirt road. And we found a great spot near a lake. And after we had put up a tent and made a fire camp, a campfire, we just decided to explore the area. It was still early in the afternoon. So, since we was gonna be there for a couple of days, we just want to explore as much as possible. And since was a whole new place that we haven't been to before. So we all went as a group in the forest and looked around, and we saw all kinds of things. We saw signs of bear, wolves, and even rabbits and birds, and it was just incredible. And even the first evening, we actually roasted some marshmallows and hot dogs and all that kinds of things. Even though after the girls went to the tent to sleep, me and the other my friends were just sitting there at the fire camp and just talking about some old childhood memories and even old camping trips that we did with our friends and families. But this trip is one thing that always been a good memory, but also the very last time any of us would ever see Ethan alive. I'm a little bit ahead of myself. Since we were going to stay here for the whole weekend, for the next couple of days, we just did all kinds of things we normally do. We swam in the lake, and we needed some supplies. So Jason and Amy decided to go back in town just gets us the supplies while me, Ethan, Nicole, and Sandra remained. And since Sandra wasn't feeling a bit out of, she was feeling a bit tired. So while she was in the tent taking a nap, just me, Nicole, and Ethan, we were just sitting by the lake, just talking and just enjoying the view. When Ethan suggested that we probably just why not we take a walk in the forest, just look around, just do something. And since Amy was actually with, since Amy were with Jason in town, and Sandra was at tent sleeping, so I was like, why not? So we went in the forest, just looking around, doing some tracks. In fact, me and Ethan was actually even former scouts, so we knew how to find which animal signs to track we find and all that. And we found all kinds of tracks, from rabbits, birds, moose, deers, and all kinds of animals. But after a while, Amy just Nicole wanted to go back to the camp, and she didn't know which direction we to go. But luckily for me and Ethan, we remembered which way we came. So, Ethan told me I could take her back to the camp, that he would be back in a moment. I said, sure. We went back. Sure enough, maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, Ethan actually returned. He had even brought back some firewood with him. Just, we were actually getting a bit low on that. And a while later, Jason and Amy returned. They actually brought some beers and even some more hot dogs and burgers for us to be eating the next couple of days. But even to this day, I wish I could have done something to have prevented this from happening. If we never actually went on this trip, Ethan may have been still be with us. You see, Ethan was not only a close friend of mine, he was like a brother to me. Since we literally grew up in the same neighborhood and we were the same age, went the same two different high school, middle school and high school, but I even once called him as my brother, and he did say the same thing. In fact, he said, one day when I have kids of my own, I will remind them to call you Uncle Connor. That touched me. We even had brought us with some fishing gears just in case if we would want to fishing. In fact, since we had burgers the day before and even on Thursday and Friday, so we decided at least maybe try to get some fish. But since either Jason or Ethan wasn't really much a good fisher, they all said, bad luck, I never get anything. Since I don't mind, so I decided to get some fish, and even though I only got perhaps only 5 fishes, but my friends was just actually at least happy we have enough fish for all of us. We actually decided to split some of the fish and had some hot dogs. That evening, I heard a strange sound when I was in the tent with Sandra. But I recognized it almost immediately because I woke up from the sound and it was a howl from a wolf. Since we had seen tracks of wolf in the area, so we didn't expect to even not expected to hear any wolves in the area at all. But Sandra was a little bit scared. I told her, "Don't worry, they will not approach here at all." So, since we only had like 2 more days left, me and others, we have nothing much planned for the next day. So, since we didn't have much planned, we decided just all of us to just walk around in the woods together as we did the first day when we arrived. But after a while, Amy, Nicole, Sandra wanted to go back to the camp since their feet was getting hurt in the feet a little bit. So, and I wanted to just go back and relax. And Jason, he wanted to take a nap himself. So, but Ethan said that he can just walk around in the forest himself. Since he is a skilled scout, so he knows exactly where to find, and he won't be gone that long though. So actually, when we all of us went back to the camp, I actually went to the tent and just to lay down, but I fell asleep. And Jason did the same. The girls, they sat by the fire, well, the campfire, the campsite, just talking. After a while, I think I went about to sleep around, I would say maybe 1 p.m. or like that. When I woke up, it was like 4, almost, I think it was around between almost 5 p.m. When I get up, I was actually approached by Jason, Sandra, Nicole, and Amy. They told me that Ethan hadn't returned yet. I was like, what? Are you sure? And when I watched my watch, I have been out for at least a few hours and he hasn't even returned a single moment. They all shook their head. I'm like, well, this is not unusual. Sometimes he can be gone for a few hours or being busy or something. Yeah, that's true, said Jason, but what if something had happened? I mean, we are far away from any hospitals or any houses in the area, he said. That was a good point. If Ethan had made his hurt or something like that, and it was not another small detail I probably forgot to mention, we barely have any we have no, almost barely any reception out there on our phones. And that was not the problem. If we want to try to text or call Ethan, like I said, it was barely any reception out there. So I decided to take my flashlight and went out in the woods to look for him. I went to the last place that I saw him before I went back to camp. I screamed and screamed of his name. Ethan, where are you? You're late. Come back to the camp. But no response at all. In fact, I didn't know what happened. Because even though it was still daylight outside, and I probably wouldn't even been out there in the woods too long. But I looked around and around and around. But nothing. I actually went back to the campsite to inform the others that I couldn't find him. At least I didn't see any signs of him anywhere. Jason was actually getting worried. But most of all, Nicole was very, very worried. So Jason and I decided to go back to the place where we found him. Or at least we last saw him. And we looked around for hours. Even after sun had gone down, we used our flashlights to look around, yelling out for Ethan to even respond. But no single word heard from him. We looked around for any sign of tracks or footprints of anything, but nothing. But after a while, we had probably walked almost for hours at this point. We had probably walked maybe as 2 miles away from that place. And before we left, we instructed the girls to have a campfire ready and have some weapons just in case if something would happen. We walked around and we saw scratch marks, or at least drag marks on the ground. And this was not like from an animal, like being dragged. We saw easily it was footprints, and then drag marks. We followed it a bit, and then we found blood. We found a huge pool of blood. I could see Jason was getting pale white, like a ghost. We immediately called out for Ethan, like, Ethan, where are you? Are you hurt? But even if he was seriously hurt, maybe passed out. But then, the other thing is, if he was passed out of almost lack of blood, there's only a 50-50 chance he could have been dead by then, or something had actually took him, based on the drag marks. But since there was any other marks or anything, so I told Jason we should go back to the camp, call for help immediately, because when we tried our own phones that we were on the spot, No reception. No bars. When we came back to the camp, the girls were sitting by the campfire. When they saw us, they saw Jason was still pale white. And they asked us for what happened, if we found Ethan. But Jason was so pale he couldn't even get a single sentence out, or even a word. I said, I need to leave Liz for a while so I can get some good reception. They asked me for what reason, but I didn't have enough time, I told them. I took my car and drove after Listed Road, after the main highway road, and I had enough service. I called immediately for 911, and shortly afterwards, the police and an ambulance arrived, even the park ranger, and they searched. The police and the park ranger, they searched the whole woods in the area, and even took him to them where we found the tracks of Ethan. They searched from that area for another several miles during the night and the next day, but they found nothing. They only found some bear tracks and other something like that in that area. And after almost 2 days of search, the police told us it's a good chance that we may not found him ever again. But they said it's a very likely chance that he has been taken by a bear. The police told us, and even a park ranger confirmed that there had been a lot of bear attacks in this forest for the past few years. And even this summer there had been at least a couple of times already. Last one was even only about a couple of weeks before we came to this art spot. Because we wasn't even aware of that. If we would have been aware of this, we probably would have been more careful and perhaps found a more suitable place. But since this was not an official campsite and not a national park, it was unlikely we would find any reports of anything like that online. Even when that happened, when we searched for 2 days, I actually called up my parents to inform them of what happened. And, well, they informed Ethan's parents, since they still lived in the neighborhood along with my parents. After almost a week of searching, or at least a couple more days, the police decided to call off the search, despite Ethan's parents plead and asked, begging to keep the search. But the police said they didn't have enough resources and for enough manpower, even despite that several volunteers from the local town and people that lived in the area wanted to help. But despite that, there was no much any evidence. We were questioned at first as potential suspect, but the police almost immediately ruled us out. After those 2 first days of search, we were just told to go home. Even I was at my parents' home, I could barely get any sleep. I had nightmares where I actually heard Ethan screaming my name, Connor, help, help. I was like seeing him be dragged away by something, and I was trying to reach out for him, but it's like I was frozen on the spot. I could see my close friend be dragging away in the dark. It was one of the most horrible nightmares I had since I was a kid. And after I'd been told from my parents that the police had called off the search, I decided to just go back out myself and search for him, even if it would take forever. I did actually that. Me and Jason actually went out there looking for him at least a couple of days. But we couldn't find any evidence or any signs of where he could have been taken. The police told us it's very likely that the bear who took him actually killed him and buried him on the ground, which that's a typical thing the bears do. They kill and bury their food so that make sure that no one else find it. And they also are known to move some of the food kills to other sites if they have been found. So after a couple of weeks of this, Ethan's parents actually lost hope to find him alive because they had hoped that one day he was just standing by their door unharmed, at least being okay. But after a couple of weeks, they declared him officially dead. I was devastated. I had lost my clothes and my brother, friend, forever now. Ever since then, I often went back to the campsite to just try to call out for Ethan to come back, hoping that he was still alive somewhere, that he was just lost in the woods. But it doesn't make sense. If he was just simply lost, he would just be able to use his scout skills to track back home to camp. I actually told the police that he is a former scout and he would easily find him back home, at least back to camp. But the police told me that despite that, even if he was attacked by a bear, cougar, or a wolf, it was only a matter of time before he was seriously injured. And ever since then, I actually went. The last time I went back to this dark spot was maybe around September of 2014, a few months after this event. That was the last time I ever went back there. And from what I actually was told, remember, Ethan was actually going to propose to Nicole only a couple of weeks after the camping trip. I was, I even informed this to Nicole, and she was devastated. She said that if he had done it, she would have said yes. And even all this after this, even it has been almost 10 years if it has all happened. We all have moved on. We still live in our hometown, but it happens that we talk about Ethan, about his shenanigans when he was younger, but I know that my kids, my daughter and son would have loved Ethan as an uncle. I told them all kinds of stories about all the stories from my childhood until the day when he vanished. They cried when they told that he was gone. They asked me if they ever found him, but I always shook my head and said, no. So that is the story when I lost my friend, vanished in the woods. Ethan, rest in peace, my friend. We all miss you.